The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal city. Its lights sparkled against the stars, and ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. This was Nexus Station, the most important place in known space. Here, 12 different alien races met to trade, talk, and make deals that affected billions of lives. Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the station through the small window of her ship's bridge.
She had never seen anything so big or beautiful.
The UES Defiance was tiny compared to the giant station, like a mouse next to an elephant. But Elena felt proud of her ship. It might not look like much, but it had brought her crew safely across thousands of light years to this moment. "Captain, we're getting a signal from station control," said Communications Officer Lisa Park. Her voice was nervous. This was humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, and everyone knew how important it was. Elena straightened her uniform. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard. Its feathers were bright blue, and its large eyes studied the human ship with obvious confusion. This was a Zephyrian, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. "Unknown vessel, this is Dockmaster Keen Talon of Nexus Station. Please identify yourself and state your business." Elena stepped forward. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiance. We request permission to dock. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council." The Zephyrian's head tilted to one side, a gesture of puzzlement. "Earth? Sol system? You are the humans?" "Yes, we are." There was a long pause. Elena could hear voices in the background, speaking in languages she didn't understand. Finally, the dockmaster spoke again. "Your ship's design is unusual. Our computers cannot classify it properly. What is your construction method?" Elena smiled. This was a question she had expected. "We built it from whatever we could find. Earth's resources were running low, so we had to be creative." Another pause. The voices in the background grew louder, more excited. Elena caught the word scavengers in several different languages. "Very well," the dockmaster said finally. "You are granted docking permission at Port 7. Please follow the guide beacons and maintain low speed. Welcome to Nexus Station." The screen went dark. Elena turned to her crew. All 50 of them gathered on the small bridge. Their faces showed excitement, fear, and hope all mixed together. "This is it, people," Elena said. "We're about to make history. Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Let's make Earth proud." The Defiant slowly approached the station. Elena watched through the windows as they passed ships from across the galaxy. Some were sleek and smooth like metal teardrops. Others were covered in crystal formations that glowed with inner light. A few looked like they were grown rather than built, with organic curves and living surfaces. Then there was the Defiance. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, welded together wherever Earth's engineers could find materials. The engines glowed brighter than they should, pushed beyond safe limits because that was the only way to make them work. Cables and pipes ran along the outside of the ship, repairs and improvements made during the long journey to the galaxy's center. "Look at that," whispered Navigator Yuki Tanaka, pointing at a massive ship docked nearby. It was easily 100 times larger than the Defiance, its hull polished to mirror brightness. Strange symbols glowed along its sides. "That's a Valorian battlecruiser," said Chief Engineer Marcus Chen, checking his datapad. "Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours." Elena nodded. She had studied all the known races before this mission. The Valorians were one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their ships were works of art, each one designed for a specific purpose and built to perfection. They had never lost a war in over 2,000 years. The Defiance settled into its docking bay with a soft thud. The bay was huge, designed for ships much larger than theirs. They looked tiny and lost in the vast space. "Atmosphere is good," reported Science Officer Dr. Sarah Kim. "Gravity is close to Earth normal. The air is safe to breathe." Elena checked her sidearm and adjusted her diplomatic credentials. "Chen, I want you to stay with the ship. Keep the engines warm and ready. Everyone else, remember the plan. We're here to learn and to show that humans deserve a place in galactic society." The airlock opened with a hiss. Elena stepped out first, followed by her diplomatic team. The docking bay was bustling with activity. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved cargo, refueled ships, and conducted business. The noise was incredible. a mixture of mechanical sounds, alien languages, and the general chaos of a busy spaceport. Almost immediately, Elena noticed the stairs. A group of tall, thin aliens with silver skin stopped their work to watch the humans walk by. Their large eyes followed every movement, and Elena heard them whispering in their musical language. "Are those the humans?" one of them asked in broken English. "So small," said another. "How do they survive in space?" A creature that looked like a walking tree turned its head toward them. Its bark-like skin rustled as it moved. "Primitives," it said in a voice like wind through leaves. "They barely have real technology." Elena kept walking, but she felt her team tense up behind her. These aliens had made up their minds about humanity before even meeting them. The humans were the new kids in school, and nobody expected much from them. They reached the main concourse, a vast space filled with shops, restaurants, and meeting areas. The ceiling was transparent, showing the stars beyond. Aliens from dozens of different worlds walked, floated, or slithered past. Some wore environmental suits, others breathed the station's air directly. "Commander Vasquez?" a voice called out. Elena turned to see a robot approaching. It was humanoid in shape, but clearly mechanical, with glowing blue eyes and silver skin. "I am Protocol Unit 779, the robot said. "I have been assigned to guide you to your quarters and brief you on station procedures." "Thank you," Elena replied. "We appreciate the assistance." As they walked through the station, 779 explained the rules and customs. The robot's voice was polite but cold, like it was reading from a manual. "Humans are classified as a Level 2 civilization," it said. "You have achieved faster-than-light travel but lack advanced technology in most other areas. Your diplomatic status is observer only. You may attend council meetings but cannot vote on galactic matters." Elena's jaw tightened. Observer only meant humanity had no real power here. They were guests at best, ignored at worst. Their quarters were small but comfortable. Elena gathered her team in the main room and closed the door. "All right, people," she said. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. They think we're primitive, and maybe by their standards we are. But we have something they don't." "What's that, Captain?" asked Dr. Kim. Elena smiled. "We know how to survive when things go wrong. We know how to fix what's broken and make it work better. These aliens have had it easy for too long. They've forgotten what it means to struggle." She looked around at her team. These were Earth's best and brightest, chosen for this mission because they could think on their feet and solve problems with limited resources. "We're going to show them what humans can do," Elena said, "not by boasting or making speeches, but by proving it when it matters most." None of them knew that their chance to prove humanity's worth would come much sooner than expected. 3 days passed quietly on Nexus Station. Elena and her team attended briefings, toured the facilities, and met representatives from various alien races. Most were polite but distant. They treated humans like curious children who had somehow stumbled into adult conversations. Elena was reviewing diplomatic protocols in her quarters when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and automated voices spoke in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. "Emergency. All diplomatic personnel report to the council chambers immediately." Elena grabbed her uniform jacket and rushed toward the council chambers. The corridors were full of aliens moving with urgent purpose. She caught fragments of conversation in various languages, but one word kept appearing: hegemony. The council chambers were a vast circular room with seating arranged in tiers. Each major race had its own section, with the most powerful civilizations closest to the center. The human delegation sat in the back, in seats clearly added as an afterthought. Elena looked around at the assembled representatives. The Valorians sat in gleaming armor that doubled as environmental suits. Their leader, Admiral Thex 9, was a tall figure whose face was hidden behind a gold mask. Near them, the crystalline collective's delegates looked like living gemstones, their bodies reflecting the chamber's lights in brilliant patterns. The Draconian Empire's representatives were exactly what Elena had expected: large, reptilian creatures with scales that shifted color with their emotions. Right now those scales showed deep red, a sign of anger or fear. At the center of the chamber stood Chancellor Vex Kryn of the Zephyrian Republic. The bird-like alien's feathers were ruffled, and his large eyes darted nervously around the room. "Fellow beings," Chancellor Vex Kryn began, his voice echoing through the chamber, "we have received grave news from the Outer Rim. The hegemony has launched a surprise attack on the Alterian colonies. Shocked whispers filled the chamber. Elena leaned forward, trying to understand what this meant. The hegemony was a military alliance of 4 aggressive races that controlled a large section of the galaxy's edge. The Alterians were peaceful traders who had never bothered anyone. "How many ships?" asked a delegate from the ethereal communion, her voice like music in Elena's mind. "Our scouts report over 200 vessels," the Chancellor replied, "including 12 dreadnoughts." The whispers turned to worried murmurs. Elena had studied galactic military capabilities during the journey to Nexus Station. A single hegemony dreadnought was the size of a small moon and carried enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Admiral Thex 9 stood up, his golden mask gleaming. "What are the hegemony's demands?" "Total surrender of the Alterian system within 72 hours, Chancellor Vex Kryn said. "If we refuse, they threaten to expand their attacks to other peaceful systems." A delegate from the Draconian Empire slammed his clawed fist on his desk. "This is intolerable. The hegemony grows bolder with each passing year. We must respond with force." "With what force?" asked a crystalline being, her voice like chimes in the wind. "The hegemony has been building their fleet for decades. Our combined navies are powerful, but they are designed for defense and peacekeeping, not large-scale warfare." Elena watched the debate unfold. For all their advanced technology and ancient wisdom, these aliens seemed paralyzed by the crisis. They had grown comfortable with peace and prosperity. War was something they remembered from history books, not something they prepared for. Admiral Thex 9 activated a holographic display showing the Alterian system. "I propose we assemble a joint fleet," he said. "The Valorian Navy will contribute 30 ships. If each member race provides vessels according to their capabilities, we could field a force of perhaps 150 ships." Against 200 hegemony vessels, the ethereal delegate's mental voice carried doubt. "And their dreadnoughts are specifically designed for fleet combat. Our ships are explorers, traders, and patrol vessels." A being that looked like a walking tree rustled its leaves. "The Botanical Confederation's ships are designed for terraforming and research. They cannot stand against military vessels." Elena found herself getting frustrated as she listened. These beings had incredible technology. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days, weapons that could crack planets. But they had forgotten how to fight. The debate continued for hours. Various battle plans were proposed and rejected. Computer simulations showed that even under the best circumstances, the galactic fleet would suffer terrible losses. Some delegates suggested negotiating with the hegemony, perhaps offering them something else in exchange for the Alterian system. "They will not stop with one system," growled the Draconian representative. "Give them Alteria today, and tomorrow they will demand 10 more systems. The hegemony respects only strength." Finally, Chancellor Vex Kryn called for order. "We must make a decision. Admiral Thex 9, what is your recommendation?" The Valorian leader stood again. "We form the largest fleet possible and engage the hegemony in traditional battle formation. We use our technological advantages to even the odds. It is our only choice." "Probability of success?" asked the crystalline delegate. 23%, Admiral Thex 9 replied without emotion. Shocked silence filled the chamber. 23% meant that 3 out of 4 galactic ships would be destroyed, along with their crews. Elena looked around at the assembled delegates. These beings controlled technologies beyond Earth's wildest dreams, but they were about to march into a battle they knew they would lose. Their problem wasn't lack of firepower or advanced systems. Their problem was that they thought like the machines they had become dependent on. Logical, efficient, and completely predictable. She stood up. The movement caught attention throughout the chamber. Conversation stopped as hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human section. Elena felt her heart pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "Chancellor Vex Kryn, may I speak?" Surprised murmurs filled the room. The Chancellor's feathers ruffled with confusion. "The human delegation has observer status only. You do not have speaking privileges in formal debate." "I'm not asking to debate," Elena said. "I'm making an offer." The Chancellor hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. Speak briefly." Elena walked down to the chamber floor, feeling every eye in the room following her. She was shorter than most beings here, and her simple uniform looked primitive compared to their advanced clothing and environmental suits. "My ship, the Defiance, volunteers to scout the hegemony positions. she said. "We can gather intelligence for your fleet and report enemy movements." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults make when a child offers to help with grown-up problems. Admiral Thex-9's mask turned toward her. "Commander Vasquez, your offer is appreciated. But scouting a force of 200 warships requires stealth technology your vessel does not possess. The hegemony would detect and destroy you before you could gather useful information." "Maybe," Elena said. "But we'd like to try." More laughter, louder this time. The draconian delegate's scales shifted to amused yellow. "The human thinks one primitive ship can approach a hegemony fleet undetected. Such courage, but such foolishness." Chancellor Vex Kryn raised a wing for silence. "Commander Vasquez, your bravery honors your species. However, we cannot allow unnecessary sacrifice. Your ship will remain here in safety, while the fleet engages the enemy. You may observe and learn from the battle." Elena nodded politely. "I understand, Chancellor. Thank you for considering our offer." She walked back to her seat, ignoring the pitying looks from the alien delegates. They saw her retreat as acceptance, but Elena's mind was already working on a different plan. As the council session ended and delegates filed out to prepare their fleets, Elena gathered her team in a quiet corner of the chamber. "Captain," whispered Dr. Kim, "you're not seriously thinking of going after the hegemony fleet, are you?" Elena smiled, the same expression that had unsettled observers during their first day on the station. "Sarah, these aliens have forgotten something important. Sometimes the best way to gather intelligence isn't to sneak around and watch. Sometimes you learn more by poking the enemy and seeing how they react." Her team stared at her in amazement. They were talking about facing 200 warships with their single, patched-together vessel. "Besides," Elena added, "they told us to observe and learn. They didn't say where we had to do our observing from." As the Galactic fleet began assembling for what everyone expected to be a desperate last stand, the crew of the Defiance prepared for something entirely different. They were going to show the galaxy what humans did when the odds were impossible, and failure meant extinction. They were going to improvise. Elena stood in the Defiance's engine room, watching Chief Engineer Marcus Chen work his magic. The room was hot, noisy, and filled with the smell of overheated metal. Pipes and cables ran everywhere, patched and repatched so many times that it was hard to tell what the original design had been. "Tell me again why we're doing this," Chen said, welding a new power coupling to the main reactor. "Because right now I'm pushing our reactor to 140% of safe capacity. If this thing explodes, we'll leave a crater where this solar system used to be. Because those aliens out there are about to fly into the biggest space battle in galactic history with a 23% chance of winning," Elena replied. "And because someone needs to even the odds. By getting ourselves killed?" Elena grinned. "By doing what humans do best, surviving when we shouldn't." The Defiance had left Nexus Station quietly, while the Galactic fleet was busy organizing itself. Elena had filed a flight plan claiming they were conducting training exercises in empty space. It wasn't technically a lie, though the training they had in mind wasn't what the station controllers expected. Navigator Yuki Tanaka called from the bridge. "Captain, we're approaching the edge of the Alterian system. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures ahead." Elena made her way to the bridge, squeezing through corridors that were never designed for easy movement. Everything on the Defiance was built for function, not comfort. The bridge was cramped, with control stations jury-rigged from a dozen different sources. Through the main viewer, she could see the hegemony fleet in the distance. Even at this range, the sight was terrifying. 200 ships hung in space like a cloud of metal death. The smallest vessels were larger than anything in Earth's fleet. The dreadnoughts were moving mountains, bristling with weapon systems that could crack planets. "Sensors are having trouble getting accurate readings," reported Science Officer Dr. Sarah Kim. "The hegemony ships are using some kind of interference field." Weapons Specialist Ahmed Hassan, "What do you think?" Elena asked. Hassan studied his displays. "They're arranged in a standard battle formation. Heavy ships in the center, fast attack vessels on the flanks. Very conventional, very predictable." "That's what I was hoping to hear," Elena said. "They're thinking like everyone else in this galaxy. By the book, by the rules, the same way they've fought for thousands of years." Pilot Sarah Mackenzie looked back from her station. "Captain, if we get much closer, they're going to detect us." "That's the plan," Elena said. Chen, how are those modifications coming? The engineer's voice crackled over the intercom. Reactor modifications complete. Weapon systems upgraded. Shield generators reconfigured for mobile deployment. And I've jury-rigged our mining lasers to the main power grid. Mining lasers? Dr. Kim asked. Elena smiled. Every ship in the galaxy is designed for a specific purpose. Warships for fighting, explorers for discovering, traders for commerce. The Defiance is different. We built her to do whatever we needed whenever we needed it. The ship shuddered as Chen's modifications came online. The bridge lights flickered, then steadied at a brighter level than before. Elena could feel the increased power thrumming through the deck plates. Incoming transmission from the hegemony. Fleet, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. They're demanding we identify ourselves. Put me through, Elena said. The main screen showed a reptilian face with cold black eyes. The creature's skin was dark green, almost black, and covered with battle scars. This was a hegemony war leader, a being bred for conquest and destruction. Unknown vessel, the alien hissed. You have entered a restricted military zone. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Defiance. We're here to deliver a message to your fleet commander. The war leader's eyes narrowed. Humans, the new primitives. What message could insects possibly have for the hegemony? Elena leaned forward. Tell your commander that this system is under the protection of the Galactic Council. Withdraw now or face the consequences. Harsh laughter filled the bridge speakers. One primitive ship threatens the hegemony fleet? Your bravery is admirable but foolish. Withdraw now and we will allow you to live to carry word of our victory back to your masters. I don't think so, Elena said. Defiance out. The screen went dark. Elena turned to her crew. All right, people. Time to show them what human diplomacy really looks like. Mackenzie, take us in. Full stealth approach. Full stealth? Mackenzie asked. Captain, we don't have stealth technology. No, Elena agreed. But we have something better. We have unpredictability. The Defiance began its approach to the enemy fleet. Instead of trying to hide, Elena ordered all non-essential systems shut down. The ship went dark, drifting like a piece of space debris toward the hegemony formation. They're scanning us, Dr. Kim reported quietly, but our power signature is so low we're barely registering on their sensors. 3 hegemony destroyers moved to intercept, their weapons powering up. Elena waited until they were close enough to see the patchwork pattern on the Defiance's hull. Now, she said. Every system on the ship blazed to life at once. The reactor surge that Chen had rigged sent power flooding through weapons that had never been designed to handle such energy levels. The Defiance's mining lasers, communication arrays, and even the garbage disposal system had been turned into improvised weapons. The lead destroyer took a direct hit from a mining laser that cut through its shields like they weren't there. The beam, designed to slice through asteroids, carved a glowing line along the warship's hull. Secondary explosions rippled along the damage as internal systems overloaded. Hassan launched a spread of missiles, but these weren't ordinary weapons. Chen had modified them during the approach, turning some into electronic warfare drones and others into kinetic penetrators. The destroyer's defense systems, designed to stop traditional missiles, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the hybrid attack. Second destroyer is turning to bring its main guns to bear, Mackenzie reported. Ram it, Elena ordered. The bridge went silent. Mackenzie's hands froze over her controls. Captain, Dr. Kim said carefully, did you just order us to ram an enemy ship? The Defiance was built to survive impacts, Elena said. Chen reinforced our bow section specifically for this kind of maneuver. That destroyer's hull is designed to be sleek and efficient, not to handle a collision. Mackenzie took a deep breath and pushed the engines to full power. The Defiance shot forward, its patched hull glowing from atmospheric friction as it plowed through the destroyer's shield matrix. The impact was tremendous. Elena was thrown against her command chair as the ship shuddered and groaned. Sparks flew from control panels and the lights went out for several seconds. When they came back on, the main screen showed twisted metal and debris floating around them. Status report, Elena called out. Hull breach on Deck 3, but the emergency barriers are holding, Chen reported. We've lost about 20% of our forward armor, but the ship is intact. The destroyer isn't. Through the viewer, Elena could see the wreckage of the enemy ship drifting in pieces. The third destroyer had backed away, its captain apparently unwilling to get close to the crazy humans who rammed enemy vessels. Incoming transmission from the Hegemony flagship, Park announced. Elena straightened her uniform. Put it through, this time. The screen showed a different alien, larger, more heavily scarred, with the elaborate markings of a fleet commander. Human vessel, the commander said, his voice carefully controlled. You have destroyed 2 of our ships. This is unexpected. We offer you 1 chance to withdraw with honor. Counteroffer, Elena replied. You withdraw and we won't destroy the rest of your fleet. The alien's expression shifted from surprise to anger. You dare threaten the Hegemony with 1 damaged ship? Yes, Elena said simply. Because that 1 damaged ship just proved something important. Your weapons, your shields, your tactics. They're all designed to fight enemies who follow the same rules you do. We don't follow your rules. The transmission cut off. Elena could see the Hegemony fleet repositioning, bringing their heavy weapons to bear on the Defiance. They're targeting us with everything they have, Hassan reported, reading massive energy buildups across the entire fleet. Elena looked around at her crew. These people had volunteered for a mission that everyone knew was probably suicide, but none of them looked afraid. They looked determined, ready to prove that humanity belonged in the galaxy. Chen, how much power do we have left? About 60%, but I can push it higher if needed. Do it. Tanaka, plot us a course through their formation. Use the asteroids as cover and don't fly in straight lines. Mackenzie, when the shooting starts, remember that our ship can do things theirs can't. We can take damage and keep fighting. We can change direction faster than their computers can track. Use that. Elena settled into her command chair as the first Hegemony weapons began firing. Energy beams and missile salvos lit up space around them, but the Defiance danced between them like a leaf in a hurricane. All hands, Elena announced over the ship's intercom. This is what we came here to do. Show these aliens what happens when you underestimate humans. The real battle was about to begin. Space around the Defiance exploded into light and death. Energy beams thick as buildings slashed through the void where the ship had been moments before. Missiles streaked past like angry stars, their sensors confused by the human ship's erratic movement patterns. Direct hit on our port shield generator, Hassan called out as the ship shook violently. Shield strength down to 40%. Elena gripped her command chair as another explosion rocked the bridge. Chen, reroute power from life support to the shields. We can hold our breath if we have to. Already on it, Captain. The Defiance twisted and spun through space, its movement so unpredictable that even its own crew had trouble following them. Pilot Sarah Mackenzie flew the ship like she was dodging traffic in an asteroid field, using every trick she had learned during humanity's desperate expansion into space. Incoming message from Admiral Thex 9, Communications Officer Lisa Park announced. The Galactic Fleet wants to know our status. Tell them we're getting warmed up, Elena replied, ducking as sparks showered from an overloaded control panel. That phrase would later be translated into 47 different galactic languages, but no translation could capture the mix of determination, defiance, and sheer human stubbornness in Elena's voice. The Hegemony fleet was learning that fighting humans was different from fighting other galactic races. Where normal ships would retreat when damaged, the Defiance kept attacking. Where logical tactics would call for defensive positioning, the humans chose offense. Where any sane captain would surrender when outnumbered 200-1, Elena Vasquez ordered another attack run. They're concentrating fire on us from 3 different directions, Dr. Kim reported. Energy readings are off the charts. Hassan, return fire with everything we have. Don't save anything for later, there might not be a later. The Defiance's weapons blazed to life again. Mining lasers carved through enemy hulls. Improvised missiles confused defensive systems, and the ship's own damaged hull became a weapon as debris from previous impacts was magnetically launched at enemy vessels. But Elena's real advantage wasn't her weapons or her ship's toughness. It was that she thought differently from every other military commander in the galaxy. Mackenzie, take us toward their flagship, she ordered. Captain, Dr. Kim protested. That's the inevitable Dominion. It's 20 times our size and has enough firepower to destroy a planet. Exactly, Elena said. Which means it's designed to fight other big ships, not something small and fast like us. The Defiance raced toward the massive dreadnought, dodging fire from a dozen smaller vessels. The flagship's main weapon, a planet-cracking energy cannon, swiveled to track them. but the beam was too slow to follow the human ship's wild maneuvers. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the assembled galactic fleet watched in amazement as their sensors tracked the impossible battle. One small ship was not only surviving against the entire hegemony fleet, but actually inflicting damage. "How are they doing this?" asked a crystalline collective war sage, her voice chiming with disbelief. Admiral Thex9 studied the battle data flowing across his screens. "They're not following any recognized tactical doctrine. Their movements are completely random. Their weapons are improvised. Their ship should have been destroyed 10 minutes ago." "But it wasn't," observed the draconian delegate, his scales shifting to colors of respect and awe. "These humans fight like our ancestors did in the old tribal wars, with courage, creativity, and complete disregard for the odds." The observation sparked something in commanders throughout the galactic fleet. For centuries, they had fought according to computer models and proven strategies. But watching the humans reminded them that war wasn't just about technology and firepower. It was about will, and the ability to do what your enemy didn't expect. Back in the battle, the Defiance had reached the hegemony flagship. The massive ship's weapons tried to track the small human vessel, but Elena had anticipated this problem. "They can't shoot at us if we're too close," she explained to her crew. "Their guns are designed for long-range fleet combat. The closer we get, the safer we are." It was insane logic that made perfect sense to anyone who had grown up on a world where resources were scarce, and every solution had to be creative. "What's the plan, Captain?" asked Hassan. Elena smiled grimly. "We're going to do what no one in galactic history has ever tried. We're going to board a hegemony dreadnought." The bridge fell silent except for the sound of weapons fire and the ship's laboring engines. "Board it?" Mackenzie repeated. "Captain, that ship has a crew of 10,000. We have 50 people. But we have surprise," Elena pointed out, "and we have something else they don't expect. The willingness to try something completely crazy." Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, I've got the mining laser focused to maximum intensity. If you can get us close enough to their hull, I can cut us a doorway." Elena looked around at her crew. These people had followed her across impossible distances, trusted her through desperate situations, and never once questioned her decisions. Now she was asking them to do something that would either save the galaxy or get them all killed. "Anyone who wants to stay with the ship can do so," she announced. "No shame in it. But I'm going aboard that flagship, and I'm going to show them what happens when you threaten peaceful worlds." Every person on the bridge stood up. "We're with you, Captain," Dr. Kim said, speaking for all of them. The Defiance dove toward the flagship's hull, using the massive ship's own structure to shield them from other hegemony vessels. Chen's mining laser began cutting through armor that was designed to withstand planet-killing weapons, but not the concentrated industrial tool that humans use to slice apart asteroids. As they prepared to board the enemy ship, Elena made one final announcement to her crew. "Remember, we're not here to conquer or destroy. We're here to prove that humans belong in this galaxy. We're here to show them that courage and creativity are just as important as advanced technology." The laser finished cutting, and a section of the flagship's hull fell away into space. The Defiance's boarding parties prepared to enter the most dangerous ship in the galaxy, armed with nothing but their wits, their determination, and the unshakable human belief that impossible just meant you had to try harder. What happened next would change the course of galactic history and prove that sometimes the smallest action could have the biggest impact. The battle for the galaxy's future was about to be decided not by massive fleets or planet-killing weapons, but by 50 humans who refused to accept that they couldn't win. Elena floated through the breach in the flagship's hull, her emergency suit protecting her from the vacuum of space. Behind her, 25 of her crew followed, carrying improvised weapons and cutting tools. The other 25 remained on the Defiance, keeping the ship ready for a quick escape. The inside of the Hegemony flagship was like a mechanical city. Corridors stretched in all directions, wide enough for multiple vehicles to pass. The walls were covered with alien text and warning symbols that pulsed with red light. "Stay together," Elena whispered into her suit radio. "We're looking for the command center. Hassan, what's your read on the ship's layout?" "Based on standard Hegemony design, the bridge should be in the central core. About 2 kilometers that way." Hassan pointed down a corridor lined with massive support beams. 2 kilometers through a ship full of 10,000 hostile aliens. Elena had led desperate missions before, but this was beyond desperate. This was impossible, which meant it was exactly the kind of thing humans excelled at. They moved through the ship's corridors like ghosts, using maintenance shafts and service tunnels that were too small for most hegemony species. The enemy crew was busy with battle stations, focused on the fleet engagement that was beginning in the distance. No one expected boarders, especially not from a ship they had assumed was destroyed. "Captain," Dr. Kim whispered, "I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the ship. They're charging their main weapon." Elena checked her handheld scanner. The planet-cracking cannon was indeed powering up, but not to fire at the approaching galactic fleet. The target was much closer. They're going to fire at point-blank range, she realized. They'd rather destroy themselves than let us escape. It was a tactic that made sense by hegemony standards. Honor through death, victory through destruction. But it was also exactly the kind of thinking that humans had learned to exploit. "New plan," Elena announced. "We're not going to the bridge. We're going to the main weapon." They changed course following Hassan's directions toward the ship's primary armament. The corridors grew larger as they approached the weapon systems, and the air thrummed with barely contained energy. The main cannon's control room was a vast chamber filled with alien technology that hurt to look at directly. Massive crystals pulsed with deadly light, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with power. At the center of it all sat a single hegemony technician, its 4 arms working frantically at control surfaces. Elena and her team burst into the room just as the weapon reached full charge. The technician looked up in shock, its reptilian features showing complete confusion at seeing humans aboard the flagship. "Stop the firing sequence," Elena ordered, pointing her improvised weapon at the alien. The technician hissed something in its own language, then switched to broken galactic standard. "Humans? How did primitives board the inevitable Dominion?" "We walked in through the front door," Elena replied. "Now shut down that weapon or we'll do it for you." The alien's eyes narrowed. "The cannon cannot be stopped once the firing sequence begins. In 30 seconds it will discharge, destroying your ship and everything around it. You have doomed yourselves." Elena looked at the weapon controls, a maze of alien symbols and energy conduits that would take years to understand. 30 seconds to figure out technology that was thousands of years ahead of Earth's best science. Then she smiled. "Chen, Hassan, Kim, start cutting power cables. Mackenzie, find anything that looks like a safety system and disable it. Everyone else, start pulling crystals out of their mounting." "Captain," Dr. Kim protested, "we don't know what any of this does. We could cause a catastrophic explosion." "That's the idea," Elena said, grabbing a crowbar from Hassan's toolkit. "If we can't turn it off, we'll break it." The hegemony technician screamed protests as the humans began systematically destroying the weapon's control systems. They yanked crystals from their settings, cut power cables with mining tools, and smashed control panels with whatever they could find. It was the most unscientific, crude, and effective sabotage in galactic history. The weapon's charging sequence began to fluctuate wildly. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship as energy feedback loops cascaded through the flagship systems. The technician abandoned its post and fled, shouting warnings in its native language. "Energy readings are going crazy," Dr. Kim reported. "The weapon's about to overload. Everyone back to the ship," Elena ordered. "Run!" They raced through the corridors as the flagship began tearing itself apart. The weapon's overload was spreading to other systems, causing explosions and power failures throughout the massive vessel. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red as they fought their way back to the Defiance. They reached their ship just as the flagship's main power core began to fail. The Defiance detached from the hull and accelerated away from the dying dreadnought, its engines pushed beyond safe limits. Behind them, the inevitable Dominion came apart like a flower made of fire and metal. The explosion lit up half the solar system, sending shockwaves that disabled dozens of other hegemony ships. But the real shockwave was psychological. Across both fleets, the impossible had just happened. A single ship with a crew of 50 had destroyed the most powerful vessel in the hegemony fleet. "Incoming transmission from the remaining hegemony ships," Park announced. Elena, breathing hard and covered in alien coolant fluid from the sabotage mission, straightened her torn uniform, put it through. The screen showed a different alien this time, younger with fewer scars, and eyes wide with something that might have been fear or respect. "Human commander," the alien said carefully. The hegemony fleet requests negotiation. Elena almost laughed. 5 minutes ago, they had been outnumbered 200 to 1, facing certain destruction. Now the enemy wanted to talk. What happened to withdrawing with honor? She asked. Your actions have changed our assessment of human military capabilities. We may have underestimated your species. Elena looked around her damaged bridge at her exhausted crew. They had pulled off the impossible, but she knew they couldn't do it again. The Defiance was barely holding together, and they had used up most of their tricks. But the hegemony didn't know that. Here are my terms, Elena said. Withdraw from the Alterian system immediately. Return to your own territory and stay there. In exchange, we won't hunt down the rest of your fleet. The alien's eyes widened further. You would pursue us into hegemony space? Elena smiled the same smile that had been unsettling observers since her first day on Nexus Station. Try us. The transmission cut off. Within an hour, the entire hegemony fleet had withdrawn, leaving the Alterian system in peace. As news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy, Elena sat in her captain's chair and watched the stars. Her ship was damaged, her crew was exhausted, and they were still thousands of light years from home. But they had done something that would be remembered for generations. They had shown the galaxy that humans belonged here. 6 months later, a fleet of human ships arrived at Nexus Station. The UES Defiance led them, now accompanied by vessels from every nation on Earth. But these weren't conquering armadas. They were diplomatic missions carrying teachers, engineers, and innovators ready to share humanity's greatest gift. Elena stood on the observation deck of Nexus Station, watching human and alien engineering teams work together on a new class of vessels, ships designed not for perfection but for adaptation, not for overwhelming force but for creative solutions. The lone human ship that stunned the galaxy had accomplished something greater than military victory. It had given an entire galactic civilization permission to think differently, and in the vast cosmos, that might be the most revolutionary act of all.